"It hurts when I sit down," she said, but when her father finds out why. David gripped the steering wheel tightly as his daughter's sobs echoed through the car. For 3 days, the same scene repeated every time they had to leave the house. "It hurts when I sit down, Daddy," Emily repeated through tears squirming in the back seat. The 7-year-old girl tried to stand even with the seatbelt on, her face red and wet from unending tears. David glanced in the rearview mirror, his heart aching. Since Jessica had passed away 2 years ago, he had done his best to care for his daughter. He worked as a manager at a hardware store in Denver and relied on his mother's help to look after Emily in the afternoons. "Easy now, sweetheart. Daddy's taking you to the doctor right away," he tried to soothe her, changing their route to the nearest hospital. The emergency room was busy that Thursday afternoon. David carried Emily in his arms since she refused to sit in the waiting room chairs. People glanced curiously at the scene. A man in a black cap and blue t-shirt holding a girl who wouldn't stop crying. After 2 hours of waiting, they were finally seen. The doctor, a young woman in a white coat, examined Emily carefully. She checked her back, felt her spine and asked questions. The girl only repeated the same thing. It hurt when she sat. "Physically, she's fine, Mr. David," the doctor explained after the tests. "I found no injuries, inflammation, or orthopedic issues. It might just be temporary muscle strain. I'll prescribe a mild anti-inflammatory." David left the hospital even more worried. Emily still refused to sit, so he had to carry her back to the car. On the way home, she fell asleep standing up, leaning against the seat, a sight that broke her father's heart. At home, David tried to get Emily to sit on the couch for dinner. She immediately burst into tears again. He noticed she had been eating standing at the kitchen table, something he hadn't picked up on in recent days due to coming home late from work. "Sweetheart, tell me exactly where it hurts." David knelt in front of her, holding her small hands. "Here, Daddy," Emily pointed to her lower back. "It hurts so much when I sit. At school, in the car, here at home." "And when did this start, honey?" Emily thought for a moment, her green eyes still teary. "I don't know, Daddy. It's been a while." The next morning, David called work to say he'd be late. He needed to speak with Emily's teacher at school. He left his daughter with their neighbor, Mrs. Betty, a retired woman who sometimes helped in emergencies. Lincoln Elementary School was 10 minutes from their house. The principal, Mrs. Margaret, greeted him with visible concern. "Mr. David, I'm glad you came. We really needed to talk about Emily. Have you noticed anything unusual with her? About 2 weeks ago, she started refusing to sit during class. She stands beside her desk the whole time. We've talked to her, but she just cries and says it hurts. I took her to the doctor yesterday. They didn't find anything physically wrong." The principal sighed, adjusting her glasses. "There's more. 3 other students in her class have started complaining of the same thing, all from the same room." A chill ran down David's spine. This changed everything. If other kids had the same symptom, there might be something wrong with the chairs or the classroom itself. "Did you check the desks? Could something be hurting the children?" "That was the first thing we did. We replaced all the desks in the room, but the problem continued." Emily's teacher, Susan, was called in to join the conversation. She was a woman in her 30s with a warm, motherly demeanor. Emily is an excellent student, always has been. But in recent weeks, it's been different. Besides not sitting down, she's been quieter, distracted. And mind you, she's always been a cheerful and engaged little girl. David ran his hand over his face, trying to process the information. Something was very wrong, and he needed to figure out what it was. "Do the other children who complain about the same pain have anything in common?" he asked. Susan thought for a moment. "Now that you mention it, they all stay for the full-day program. Emily, Jacob, Olivia, and Sophia. They eat lunch at school and stay for afternoon activities. But Emily doesn't stay in the afternoon. My mum picks her up after lunch." The 2 teachers exchanged glances. "Mr. David," the principal said carefully, "Emily has been enrolled in our afternoon program for 2 months now. Your mother signed her up in person." The world seemed to spin around David. His mother, Mrs. Evelyn, had enrolled Emily in extra activities without telling him. Why? Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, back to the story. David left the school with his mind racing. On his way to work, he called his mother. She didn't answer. He tried 3 more times throughout the morning, with no luck. His anxiety grew with each unanswered call. At lunchtime, David decided to stop by home. He found Emily with Mrs. Betty, eating while standing in the kitchen. The little girl seemed livelier, playing with the neighbor's kitten. "She's doing better today," Mrs. Betty remarked, "but she still won't sit down, poor thing." David thanked her and took Emily to his mother's house, just a few blocks away. Mrs. Evelyn was 62, a widow for 5 years, and had always been a strong-willed woman. She'd raised 3 children with strict discipline, a trait David knew all too well. The house was quiet. David used his key and walked in with Emily. They found Mrs. Evelyn in the living room watching TV. "Mom, we need to talk." "Hello to you too, son," she replied dryly, not taking her eyes off the soap opera. "Why did you enroll Emily in extra school activities without telling me?" Mrs. Evelyn finally looked at him, her face showing irritation. "Because you've been too busy to take proper care of her. Someone needs to worry about her education." "You had no right. I'm her father. And I'm her grandmother. Ever since Jessica died, I've been the one taking care of this child while you work. I absolutely have the right to think about her future." Emily shrank back at the raised voices. David noticed and tried to calm himself. "Mum, Emily has a problem. She's in pain when she sits. I took her to the doctor and—" "Nonsense," Mrs. Evelyn cut in. "This girl is just being spoiled. She wants attention. In my day, children didn't have these silly issues." "It's not silly, Mum. Other kids at school have the same problem. Then it's a fad. One started acting up, and the others copied. Emily, stop this nonsense and sit down right now." The little girl started crying, hiding behind her father. "No, Grandma, it hurts too much. You see." Mrs. Evelyn stood, pointing at her granddaughter. "This is what happens when you let her do whatever she wants. Jessica would never have allowed this." The mention of his late wife hit David like a punch. He took a deep breath, picked Emily up, and turned to leave. "We'll talk about this when you're calmer." "She'll come here tomorrow, like always," Mrs. Evelyn declared. "And she will sit properly even if I have to hold her down in the chair." David left without responding, his chest tight with worry. On the way back, Emily was unusually quiet. He decided it was time to dig deeper. At home, he fixed his daughter a snack and sat on the floor beside her as she ate standing up. "Honey, Daddy needs you to tell me everything about the afternoons at Grandma's house." Emily bit her lip, hesitant. "Grandma gets mad if I don't do things right." "What things, sweetheart?" "The lessons. She says I have to study hard so I don't embarrass Mommy in heaven." David felt his heart tighten. Was his mother using Jessica's memory to pressure the child? "And how long do you study?" "A long time, Daddy. Grandma won't let me get up until I finish everything." "What if you need to go to the bathroom?" Emily lowered her eyes. "Grandma says it's an excuse. That smart kids can hold it." Indignation swelled inside David. He hugged his daughter, trying to control his anger. "Is there anything else you want to tell me?" Emily shook her head, but David sensed there was more. He decided not to push it just then. He needed to think about how to handle this. The next day, Friday, David called work again. His boss wasn't happy, but he promised to make up the hours over the weekend. He had to resolve Emily's situation. That morning, he took her to school himself. He quickly spoke with her teacher, Susan, explaining he was looking into the problem. She promised to keep a close eye on Emily. Instead of going to work, David went home and called his sister, Amanda, who lived in Aurora. She was an elementary school teacher and always had a more modern view on education, which often clashed with Evelyn's. "Dave, it's been so long. How's my beautiful niece?" "That's what I need to talk about, Mandy." David explained everything. The silence on the other end grew as he spoke. "My God, Dave, Mum's doing to Emily what she did to us." "What do you mean? You don't remember? The hours we spent sitting at the kitchen table doing homework? The scolding if we moved? Richard developed back problems because of it." A wave of forgotten memories crashed over David. His younger brother Richard did have back issues. They'd always blamed it on him growing too fast, but now... She hit us with the ruler, Dave. On our backs. You blocked it out, but I remember. Ruler? David's blood ran cold. Dad's wooden ruler. She used it to correct our posture. Hit us if we didn't sit straight. The puzzle pieces fell into place in a horrifying way. Emily's pain when sitting, her fear, her reluctance. I have to get Emily out of there, Mandy. I'm coming now. I'll pick up Olivia from daycare and head straight over. Don't do this alone, Dave. Mum can be tough when challenged. David agreed and hung up. He spent the next hours pacing, trying to process everything. How had he not noticed? How had he left his daughter with someone who could hurt her? The phone rang. It was the school. Mr. David? This is Principal Margaret. You need to come right away. Emily fainted. His world collapsed. David grabbed his keys and ran out. 1,000 thoughts raced through his mind. He reached the school in record time. Emily was in the nurse's office, pale but awake. The nurse explained she'd been standing all morning and eventually got sick. She's dehydrated and exhausted. She needs rest. Daddy, Emily called weakly. I'm here, sweetheart. Daddy's here. Sorry. I tried to stand like Grandma told me, but I couldn't. Like Grandma told you? David asked, fighting to stay calm. She said if I complained about pain at school, I'd get a real spanking when I got home. The principal and nurse exchanged alarmed looks. David felt a fury he'd never known before. His own mother was threatening his daughter. Emily, sweetheart, you won't stay with Grandma anymore, okay? Daddy's going to take care of you. But Grandma said you need to work. I'll figure it out. Don't worry about it. Amanda arrived half an hour later, accompanied by her 5-year-old daughter. When she saw Emily's condition, her eyes filled with tears. My God, David, this brings back so many bad memories. While Emily rested, the siblings talked in the hallway. We need to confront Mom, Amanda said. But not alone, I'll call Richard. He's in New York. He needs to know. This affects all of us, David. And Emily needs all the support she can get. The principal approached carefully. Mr. David, given what we've heard, we need to file a report. It's school protocol in cases of suspected, well, abuse. David agreed. He knew it was necessary, even if the accused was his own mother. Emily was released after a few hours with a recommendation for rest. David took her home where Amanda had already prepared a comfortable spot with cushions on the floor. You can lie down here, Emily. No chairs, no sitting, just rest. The girl smiled for the first time in days. That night, Richard called from New York. The conversation was long and painful. He confirmed Amanda's memories and added details that made David's stomach churn. She used to lock me in the study room for hours, David. I was 8 years old and had to sit on that hard chair until I finished piles of exercises. Why did we never talk about this? Because Dad died. She was alone, and we felt sorry for her. We let it go. But we can't let her do this to Emily. I'm taking my daughter away from her. She won't accept it easily. You know, Mom. She'll say we're exaggerating, that it's for Emily's own good. I don't care what she says. On Saturday morning, the 3 siblings gathered at David's house. Emily was with the neighbor, Mrs. Betty. They needed to resolve this before exposing the child to more trauma. They went together to Mrs. Evelyn's house. She greeted them with surprise and suspicion. What is this? An ambush? Mom, we need to talk about Emily, David began. If it's about the extra lessons, I won't back down. That girl needs discipline. Are you hitting her? Amanda was direct. Mrs. Evelyn's eyes widened, then narrowed in anger. How dare you accuse me of something like that? Because you did it to us, Richard intervened. I still have back problems today because of you. I raised you right. I made you decent people. If I used strict methods, it was because they were necessary. You used Dad's ruler, David said, his voice shaking. Emily has back pain. She's afraid to sit. Mrs. Evelyn stood up, her face red with rage. You're all ungrateful. After everything I've done, I took care of that girl when you needed me, and this is how you thank me. Where's the ruler, Mum? Amanda asked. What ruler? Dad's wooden ruler, the one you used on us. A heavy silence fell over the room. Mrs. Evelyn looked away. "I don't know what you're talking about." David stood and went straight to his father's old office. He knew that house well. At the back of the drawer he found it, the same dark wooden ruler worn with time. As he picked it up, a wave of repressed memories hit him. He returned to the living room holding the object. Amanda paled at the sight of it. Richard closed his eyes. "Does this bring back any memories, Mom?" Mrs. Evelyn crossed her arms defiantly. "So what?" "Yes, I used physical discipline when necessary. You're alive, educated, working. It worked, didn't it?" "It worked?" Richard exploded. "I've been in physical therapy for years. I have anxiety attacks. David can barely show affection because you taught us that tenderness was weakness." "And Amanda," David continued. "She developed an eating disorder as a teen because you forced her to sit for hours without letting her use the bathroom." Amanda was crying silently. "I wet my pants, Mum. You made me clean it up and then hit me more for it." Mrs. Evelyn seemed to hesitate for a moment, but quickly composed herself. "You're all exaggerating, making a scene. That's what this generation does, drama over everything." "Did you hit Emily?" David asked directly. "Yes or no?" "I gave her a few corrective taps when she didn't keep her posture. Nothing serious." "Taps? With this?" David raised the ruler. "Sometimes, but lightly, just so she'd learn. That was the last straw." David snapped the ruler over his knee, the crack echoing through the room. Mrs. Evelyn jumped in shock. "Emily isn't coming back here, ever again." "You can't do that. I'm her grandmother. I have rights." "You have the right to take it to court if you want," Amanda intervened. "But we have Emily's testimony, the school report, and 3 adults who suffered the same abuse as children. Do you really want to go down that road?" Mrs. Evelyn looked at them one by one. Finally, her face showed something she rarely displayed: fear. "You wouldn't do that, exposing your own mother." "To protect Emily," David said firmly, "we'd do anything." The 3 siblings left the house in silence. Outside, Amanda hugged David. "You did the right thing." "Why did it take me so long to see it?" "Because she's our mother. We always want to believe the best of her." Richard placed a hand on his brother's shoulder. "What matters is you acted now. Emily will be okay." Back at home, David found Emily playing in the yard with Mrs. Betty and Amanda's daughter. The girl ran to him when she saw him. "Daddy!" He hugged her tightly, silently promising to always protect her. "Sweetheart, I need to tell you something. You won't be spending afternoons with Grandma anymore." Emily looked at him with a mix of relief and worry. "But you work. Mrs. Betty will take care of you." The neighbors smiled and waved. "And Aunt Nanda will help too, is that okay? And Grandma won't be mad. Let Daddy handle that. You just need to worry about being a kid, playing, studying at your own pace. No pressure, no pain." Emily hugged him tightly. "Thank you, Daddy. The pain is already getting better." And it really was. In the following days, without the pressure and fear, Emily gradually started sitting normally again. First for a few minutes, always with soft cushions, then for longer periods. The school was informed of the situation and arranged counseling for Emily and the other affected children. It turned out they all had one thing in common: grandparents or guardians with extremely strict parenting methods. Mrs. Evelyn tried reaching out several times. Calls ignored, messages unanswered. Until one day, 3 weeks later, she showed up at David's door. "Please, son, let me explain." David almost shut the door, but something in his mother's face made him hesitate. She looked older, worn down. "Is Emily here?" "She's at school. You have 5 minutes." They sat on the porch. Mrs. Evelyn wrung her hands for a moment before speaking. I've been thinking a lot about what you said." David waited silently. "My mother raised me that way, and her mother before her. I thought it was right, normal. When you all turned out fine, I thought I'd done a good job. We grew up despite your methods, Mom, not because of them." Tears welled in Mrs. Evelyn's eyes, something David rarely saw. "I loved you. I do. I thought discipline was love. that preparing you for a hard world was my way of showing care. Love doesn't hurt, Mum. Love doesn't leave physical and emotional scars. I know that now. I've been reading, researching. There are so many studies on childhood trauma that I never... She stopped, swallowing her sobs. Can I see Emily? Just see. I promise I won't approach if she doesn't want to. Not yet, Mum. She's in therapy. When the psychologist thinks it's appropriate, when Emily is ready, I'll let you know. Mrs. Evelyn agreed, defeated. I'm so sorry, David. I truly am. It was a beginning, not a solution, not instant forgiveness, but a beginning. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. 2 months passed. Emily was doing much better, though she still attended weekly therapy sessions. David had completely reorganized his life. He negotiated a flexible work schedule, allowing him to spend more time with his daughter. Mrs. Betty had become an important figure, caring for Emily with the affection of the grandmother she needed. One Saturday afternoon, Emily was drawing at the kitchen table when she asked, "Daddy, why did Grandma do those things?" David, who was preparing lunch, stopped and sat beside her. "It's complicated, sweetheart. Grandma learned the wrong way to care for children. She thought she was doing what was best. But it hurt. I know, my love, and that was never okay. Adults sometimes make mistakes even when they think they're helping. Was Grandma bad?" David thought carefully about his answer. "Grandma did bad things, but that doesn't mean she's entirely bad. She's learning, trying to change. I'm scared of her. And it's okay to feel scared. You don't have to see her until you feel safe." Emily went back to her drawing. David saw it was a family, a man, a little girl, and a woman he recognized as Jessica, drawn the way Emily remembered her from photos. "Mommy wouldn't let Grandma hurt me, right?" "No, my love. Mommy would always protect you, just like Daddy is doing now." Life went on. David discovered that being a single father was possible with the right support system. Amanda visited often. Richard called every week from New York. The family, fractured by old traumas, began to rebuild. The school reported significant improvements in Emily. She had returned to being the happy, engaged little girl she once was. The other affected children also improved with proper care. Mrs. Evelyn kept her distance, but David learned through Amanda that she was in therapy, a big step for someone of her generation who saw psychologists as something for weak people. 6 months after the confrontation, Emily's therapist suggested a supervised meeting with her grandmother. Emily was nervous but agreed. The meeting took place in the therapist's office, a neutral and safe environment. Mrs. Evelyn arrived different, less rigid, more cautious. When she saw Emily, her eyes filled with tears. "Hi, my sweet girl." Emily hid partially behind David but replied, "Hi, Grandma. You look beautiful. You've grown." The therapist guided the conversation carefully. Mrs. Evelyn, her voice trembling, apologized to Emily. She explained in child-friendly terms that she had learned wrong ways to raise children and was deeply sorry for what she'd done. "I never meant to hurt you, Emily. I thought I was teaching you to be strong. But I am strong, Grandma. Daddy says I'm strong because I speak up when something's wrong." Mrs. Evelyn looked at David, surprised and proud at the same time. "Your father's right. You're very strong and brave." The meeting was brief but meaningful. Emily wasn't ready to fully forgive, and that was respected, but it was the start of healing for everyone. In the following months, supervised visits continued. Mrs. Evelyn, through her own therapy, confronted the traumas of her childhood that had led her to repeat abusive patterns. It was painful for her to acknowledge that her mother, and her mother's mother, had perpetuated a cycle of violence disguised as discipline. David also went to therapy. He realized how much of his struggle to express emotions stemmed from his strict upbringing. He learned to be more emotionally present for Emily, to show affection without fearing it made him seem weak. A year later, at a family gathering during Christmas, the change was visible. Mrs. Evelyn was there, invited by Emily after much reflection. The girl, now 8 years old, had set clear boundaries. Her grandmother could visit, but always under supervision, and any sign of the old behaviors would mean the end of the visits. During dinner, Emily excitedly shared about the end-of-year school performance. She had played the recorder, sitting comfortably in her chair throughout the entire show. "I'm proud of you," Mrs. Evelyn said softly. "Thank you, Grandma." It was different now. The affection was still there, but with healthy boundaries. The trauma hadn't been forgotten, but it was being transformed into a lesson. Amanda raised a toast. "To our family. Imperfect, hurt, but trying to be better." Everyone raised their glasses, including Emily with her grape juice. Later, while Emily played with her cousins, Mrs. Evelyn approached David. "Thank you for not giving up on me completely. You're my mother, and Emily needed to see that people can change, can improve, but that doesn't erase the past." "I know. I'll carry this guilt forever." "Then use it to be better. Emily still has a lot of growing to do. Be the grandmother she deserves." Mrs. Evelyn agreed, watching her granddaughter play. The girl who a year ago couldn't sit because of the pain was now running and jumping, free and happy. The journey had been long and painful. Family secrets exposed, generational traumas confronted. But there, in that room full of voices and laughter, there was hope. David picked up the guitar and began playing Christmas songs. Emily ran over to sit on his lap, singing along. There was no more pain when sitting, just the comfort of her father's embrace. Mrs. Evelyn watched from a distance, respecting the space. In therapy, she had learned that true love sometimes means keeping your distance, giving room, letting others define the terms of the relationship. The evening continued with stories being shared. Richard talked about his back treatment, how he was finally making progress after years of physical therapy. Amanda spoke about her work with alternative teaching methods, inspired to break cycles of authoritarian education. "You know," Emily suddenly said, catching everyone's attention, "I learned something important this year." "What was it, sweetheart?" David asked. "That when something hurts, you have to say it. You can't keep it inside, because sometimes adults don't realize they're hurting you." Silence filled the room. The wisdom of that 8-year-old was profound. "You're absolutely right," Amanda said, moved. "We all learned that from you." Emily smiled proudly, then looked at her grandmother. "Grandma, did you learn too?" Mrs. Evelyn, with tears in her eyes, replied, "Yes, I did, my dear. You taught me the most important lesson of my life." The celebration continued, but something fundamental had changed. The cycle of violence that had spanned generations was broken by a girl brave enough to say, "It hurts when I sit." Years later, Emily would become a child psychologist, inspired by her own journey. At her graduation, Mrs. Evelyn would be there, proudly applauding the granddaughter who taught her that discipline without love is just cruelty, and that true love should never, ever hurt. David, watching his daughter receive her diploma, remembered that day in the car, her sobs echoing as he drove, unsure what to do. How much had changed since then? How much they had all grown. After the ceremony, Emily hugged her father. "Thank you for listening to me that day, Dad, for believing in me. I'll always listen to you, my daughter. Always." Mrs. Evelyn approached cautiously. Emily, now an adult, hugged her too. "Thank you for changing, Grandma. I know it wasn't easy. You saved our family, Emily. You saved me from myself." It was true. The pain a child felt while sitting had exposed decades of family trauma, but it had also made healing, change, and hope possible. That evening at the graduation celebration, 3 generations danced together. The music was joyful, the smiles genuine. The scars still existed. They always would, but they no longer defined their destinies. Emily gave a moving speech about her journey, about how physical pain was sometimes a manifestation of deep emotional wounds, about the importance of listening to children, validating their feelings, and breaking generational cycles of violence. "My grandmother hurt me," she said into the microphone with Mrs. Evelyn in the audience, tears streaming down her face. But she also had the courage to change, to seek help, to acknowledge her mistakes. And that is also love. The audience gave a standing ovation. David wept openly, proud of the strong, compassionate woman Emily had become. After the graduation, the family gathered for dinner. It was a tradition now, monthly dinners where they spoke openly about their feelings, struggles, and joys. No secrets, no hidden pain. "Remember when I couldn't sit down?" Emily asked, now able to speak about it lightly. "How could we forget?" David replied. "It was the hardest and most important moment of our lives." "It changed everything," Amanda agreed. "For the better." Mrs. Evelyn, now 75, held her granddaughter's hand. "You gave me a second chance, Emily. I don't deserve it, but I'm grateful every day." "Everyone deserves second chances, Grandma. What matters is what we do with them." The conversation flowed late into the night. Stories were retold, tears and laughter mingled. The Johnson family had survived the worst and emerged stronger. Emily would start her job at a clinic specializing in childhood trauma the following week. Her mission was clear: to ensure no child suffered in silence as she had. "You know what my first question to the kids will be?" she said. "What?" everyone asked. "Where does it hurt?" "And I'll believe them, no matter how strange it sounds." David raised his glass. "To Emily, for having the courage to speak, for teaching us to listen. To all of us," Emily corrected, "for having the courage to change." The toast was made with joy. Outside, Denver glittered under the stars. Inside that restaurant, a family celebrated not just a graduation, but a journey of healing that had begun with a simple phrase: "It hurts when I sit, Daddy." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps those of us just starting out. Now, continuing. 5 years had passed since graduation. Emily had built a respected career as a child psychologist, specializing in identifying non-verbal signs of abuse. Her office had colorful walls, cushions on the floor, and no rigid chairs, a deliberate choice that made children feel free. One autumn morning, Emily got a call from her father. "Sweetheart, I need to tell you something. Grandma's in the hospital." Emily's heart raced. Despite everything, she had built a careful relationship with Mrs. Evelyn over the years. What happened? "She fell at home, broke her hip. The doctors say she'll need special care for a long time." Emily went straight to the hospital. She found her grandmother frail in bed, looking smaller than she remembered. "Emily, you came." "Of course I came, Grandma." Mrs. Evelyn gripped her granddaughter's hand with surprising strength. "I'm scared." "Of what?" "Of being dependent, of being a burden, of being treated the way I treated you all." Emily's eyes welled up. Her grandmother's fear was understandable. She knew the weight of her own harshness. "Grandma will take care of you with love, with the right way. I don't deserve it." It's not about deserving, it's about choosing to break the cycle. In the following months, the Johnson family organized themselves to care for Evelyn. It was Emily who suggested the approach: patience, kindness, and respect for the elderly woman's autonomy, even in her fragility. "We're teaching by example," she explained to her uncles, showing that care doesn't have to mean control. Evelyn, initially resistant to accepting help, gradually allowed herself to be vulnerable. It was hard for someone who had always equated strength with rigidity to admit she needed others. One afternoon, as Emily helped her with physical therapy, Evelyn said, "You know, I've been thinking a lot about my mother." "What about her?" "She used to hit me too with a quince branch, said it was for my own good. And you repeated the pattern. I thought I was being better. I only used a ruler, not a branch. I thought that was progress." Emily paused the exercise and looked into her grandmother's eyes. "It was what you knew, but now you know better. Thanks to you, that brave little girl who said, 'It hurts.'" The physical therapy sessions also became memory sessions. Evelyn shared stories of her harsh childhood in the countryside, her authoritarian father, her submissive mother who took her frustrations out on the children. "I promised I'd be different," she said once, "but I ended up just being a different version of the same problem. The difference is you recognized it and changed. That breaks the cycle." David often joined them. Father and daughter had developed a beautiful partnership in caring for Evelyn. He cooked her favorite meals, She tended to her emotional needs. One evening during dinner in the hospital room, Evelyn made an unusual request. "I want to write letters, for the three of you, to leave a record." "A record of what?" Richard asked, having come from New York to visit her. "My mistakes, my apologies, but also what I've learned, so future generations will know." The letter project became therapeutic for everyone. Evelyn dictated to Emily, who transcribed. The accounts were raw, honest, but also full of love and regret. "To my grandson David," one letter began, "who had to be too strong too soon because of me." Tears were frequent in these sessions, but there was also healing. Every word written was one less brick in the wall trauma had built between them. Evelyn's recovery was slow but steady. She returned home with a caregiver but received daily visits from the family. Emily created a routine of having lunch with her twice a week. One afternoon, as they drank tea, Evelyn said, "You know what's ironic? Now that I'm old and fragile, I receive more love than I ever gave when I was strong." "Love was always available, Grandma. You just didn't know how to receive it. Or give it. Not the right way. You're giving it now. Every story you share, every tear you allow, every hug you accept." Emily had become an expert at identifying signs of generational abuse in her young patients. She often encountered grandmothers like Evelyn had been, well-meaning, but trapped in old patterns of violence. "How do you do it?" a colleague asked. "Working with this every day, with your own history. Because of my history. Every child I help is a victory over my own trauma." Emily's practice became a reference. She developed an early identification protocol, adopted by schools in the region. The case of the girl who couldn't sit became a university case study. Evelyn followed it all with pride. In an interview Emily gave for a documentary on generational trauma, she asked to participate. "I want people to know," she said, looking at the camera, "that the grandmother who hurt exists and regrets it, and changed because of a child's courage." The documentary had a national impact. Hundreds of families identified with the story. Many sought help. Emily received messages from grandparents asking for guidance on how to change. "We started a movement," David said at a family gathering. "Unintentionally, but we did." Emily's pain became purpose, Amanda added, for so many families. Mrs. Evelyn, now 82, had become an informal ambassador against child violence disguised as discipline. She spoke at senior groups, sharing her story. "It's my penance," she said, "and my redemption." Emily married Michael, a pediatrician she met at a conference. He understood her past and respected her scars. The wedding was simple, family-oriented. Mrs. Evelyn gave an emotional speech. "Emily taught me that true love doesn't control, hurt, or belittle. May Michael always remember that." When Emily became pregnant, the whole family was moved, but old fears resurfaced. "What if I repeat the patterns?" she confessed to her father. "What if, without meaning to?" "You won't," David assured her, "because you know the pain, and you chose healing." The baby was born on a spring morning, a healthy boy named Nathan. Mrs. Evelyn held him with trembling hands, tears streaming. "A fresh start," she whispered, "a blank page." "Not blank," Emily gently corrected, "a page where the story continues, now written with love." Nathan's early years were a journey of discovery for everyone. Emily sometimes caught herself tensing up when he didn't obey immediately, echoes of her rigid upbringing lingering. But she breathed, remembered, and chose differently. Mrs. Evelyn, though frail with age, was a loving and present grandmother. She told stories, sang songs, and, most importantly, respected her great-grandson's boundaries. "No, Grandma," Nathan said one day at 3, refusing to finish his plate. "That's okay, sweetheart," she replied, surprising herself with how easily the words came. "You know when you're full." Emily watched with a warmed heart. The contrast with her own childhood was stark. Change was real. Emily's practice now included support groups for families, grandparents, parents, and children, learning together about healthy boundaries, loving discipline, and breaking generational cycles. Dr. Emily, one grandmother asked in a session, "How did you forgive your grandmother?" Emily thought carefully. Forgiveness was a process, not a single moment, and it came with real change, clear boundaries, and hard work from both sides. But was it worth it? Emily glanced out the window, where she could see Mrs. Evelyn in the garden with Nathan, both laughing at something only they understood. Every second, time flew. Nathan grew up surrounded by mindful love, healthy limits, and gentle discipline. He was a confident child, able to express his feelings and needs. Mrs. Evelyn turned 85. Her health declined, but her spirit remained strong. One afternoon, she called Emily for an important talk. "I need to thank you once more." "Grandma, you don't have to." "Yes, I do. You gave me what I never gave you, the chance to be better, to know real love before I go. You always loved us. You just didn't know how to show it. And you taught me. A 7-year-old taught me how to love." They embraced, tears mingling generations of pain and healing. Mrs. Evelyn passed on a quiet winter night, surrounded by family. Her last words were for Emily. "Thank you for forgiving me." "Thank you for changing," Emily replied. The funeral was a celebration of transformation. Dozens of families touched by Mrs. Evelyn's story of change attended. Grandparents who had reconsidered their ways, parents who had broken cycles. Emily gave the eulogy. "My grandmother hurt me as a child. That's the hard truth. But she also taught me it's never too late to change. That love can transform even the hardest of hearts. That the courage of a child saying it hurts can save generations." Nathan, now 5 years old, placed a drawing in the casket. It was a family holding hands, with a huge heart in the middle. "For great-grandma," he said simply. Months later, Emily published a book telling her story. When Sitting Hurts, A Journey of Family Healing, became a bestseller, helping thousands of families. In the dedication, she wrote, "To my grandmother who had the courage to change, to my father who had the courage to protect me, to all the children who feel pain, speak up, to all the adults, listen." The book launch was emotional. David, Amanda, and Richard were there, proud. Michael held Nathan, who clapped excitedly. "Mommy wrote a book," he announced to everyone. During the signing, an elderly woman approached shyly. "Dr. Emily, I was like your grandmother. I hit my grandchildren with a ruler. I thought it was discipline." Emily held the woman's hands. "And now?" "I read your story in a magazine. I apologized. I'm in therapy. My grandchildren are giving me a chance." "Then you're already on the right path. It's hard. Sometimes the old impulse comes back. It will always be hard, but it's worth it, believe me." The woman left in tears, but with hope. It was like this at every event. Stories of pain, but also of transformation. Nathan grew up hearing his family's story, not as a secret or a shame, but as an example of overcoming. He knew his great-grandmother had been wrong, changed, and been forgiven. "Mommy," he asked one day at 7 years old, "why did great-grandma hit you?" Emily sat with him on the couch, choosing her words. "Because she learned the wrong way to care for children. She thought being harsh was being a good mother. But it's not." "No, it's not. How do you know that?" "Because you and Daddy never hit me, and you love me so much." "Exactly. And if someone hits me, you tell us right away, just like I told Grandpa. And you'll protect me?" "Always." Nathan hugged his mother, secure in her love. The cycle was truly broken. Years passed. Emily became an international authority on childhood trauma and breaking generational patterns. She traveled giving talks, but always came home to her family. David, now a grandfather, was the opposite of what Mrs. Evelyn had been. Playful, affectionate, respectful. He and Nathan had a beautiful relationship. "Grandpa," Nathan said one day at 12. "Thank you." "For what, champ?" "For protecting Mommy. If you hadn't, maybe I wouldn't exist. Or I'd be different." David was moved. "Your mother protected herself first. She had the courage to speak. I just listened." Still, thank you. They hugged, 3 generations of healing in one gesture. Emily continued her work for decades. Thousands of children were helped, countless families transformed. The Emily Johnson Protocol was adopted by the Department of Health. One afternoon, nearing retirement, Emily received a special visit, a young woman with a girl about 7 years old. "Dr. Emily, my name is Sophia. I was one of the kids in your daughter's class 40 years ago. I also couldn't sit." Emily's eyes widened as the memory returned. "Sophia, my goodness, how are you?" "Good, thanks to you. My grandmother changed after what happened. And now," she looked at her daughter, "my Lily is going through something similar at school. I remembered you." Emily knelt in front of Lily. "Hi, sweetheart. Do you want to tell me what's happening?" And so the work continued. Every child saved, a victory. Every family transformed, proof that pain can become purpose. That evening, Emily came home to find Nathan, now an adult and also a psychologist, visiting with his newborn daughter. "Hi, Mum. Want to hold your granddaughter?" Emily cradled the baby with infinite care. She looked into those curious little eyes and saw the future, a future where children would grow up safe, loved, and heard. "What will you name her?" "Evelyn, in honor of her great-grandmother." "The woman she became, not the one she was," Emily cried. The circle was complete, but now woven with threads of love and understanding. "She would be so happy." "She is happy," Nathan said firmly. "Wherever she is, she's happy seeing what her courage created." Emily looked out the window. Denver glittered at night, full of families, each with their own stories. How many Emilys were out there? How many Evelyns needing a second chance? "Grandma," little Evelyn babbled, touching Emily's face. "Yes, my love, Grandma is here and she always will be." The legacy continued, from a little girl who said, "It hurts when I sit," to generations of children who would learn that their voices matter, that their pain is valid, that true love never hurts. Emily hugged her granddaughter, closing her eyes. She could almost feel Mrs. Evelyn there, smiling, finally at peace. The cycle had been broken decades ago, but only now were its fragments fully swept away. The healing was complete. Love had won. The end of the story. And so we come to the end of this moving journey. Now tell me, what did you think of Emily's story and her family? Leave a comment if you also believe it's always possible to change and break cycles. Your likes and subscriptions help our channel grow so much.